50 Looney Years, starring Little Richard.
Well, the word is out, is reaching across this town. It's a birthday wish that's spreading through the crowd. So now listen up, my friend, and hear us out. Now that's not all, folks. We want more.
What's up, Docs and Docettes? Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic here. It is a new year, 2020. And do you know what that means? Well, it means a lot of things. It means that the vision is clear. If you have 2020 vision, your vision is clear. And right now, from this point in time anyway, we can surmise that Warner Brothers' vision is 2020 and pretty bloody clear. In terms of what they're doing with the new cartoons that we will be seeing in May on the HBO Max streaming service, as we saw with Dynamite Dance and some other, Curse of the Monkey Bird and all that other stuff. But what's interesting is that I mentioned some of the other things in the Porky 101 review that will be coming up this year and how this is going to be a pretty big year for all things Looney Tunes. But basically, it's going to be the 80th birthday for Bugs Bunny, and that's kind of a big deal. And I'm here to kind of walk you through what that could be like, because I've experienced something very similar to that. In 1990, we had Bugs Bunny's 50th birthday, and it was a year-long celebration. Now, I'm not going to go it alone. It's best if you can get some other kind of perspective than just one person's, and in this case, I do. My good buddy, Matt Hunter from Golden Age Cartoons, is joining us via Skype. Matt!
Hi.
All the way from Fort Worth, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. How about you?
Pretty good. Well, we're bringing you in here to talk about the. You remember the Bugs Bunny's 50th birthday, 1990, and it's always, like I said, it's always good to have another person's thought. You and I are about what, 5 years apart?
Yeah. I'm 35. I'm be 36 next month. So
yeah. So you're just behind. I just turned 41. You're just turning 36. So it's about 5 years apart. So What do you remember? I mean, it was a big thing. Am I inflating it and making it bigger than it was, or it was a big deal? Am I right?
It really was, and I was probably 6 at the time. So what I remember is just Bugs Bunny everywhere.
Yeah.
There were commercials. There were promotional tie-ins. They had like McDonald's Happy Meals that were Bugs Bunny. They had Bugs Bunny T-shirts everywhere. There were posters. Six Flags made a big deal about it. There was a tie-in with Holiday Inn, as I recall. Yeah, they're Bugs Bunny glass.
The Happy Birthday Bugs, and you can't really see here. The characters are very on model characters, I might add, going around the glass. This is kind of weird. The way Daffy looks on this thing.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a blend of the old 40s pose,
right?
But with a new, kind of an updated look.
They gave the new anatomy to the old clamp it pose, and.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, there was a special. There was a couple of specials actually. It was the year of specials, but it was a special year for specials, but. There was specifically a Bugs Bunny's 50th birthday special. You and I will probably end up doing a commentary on that stuff.
Yeah, there were a couple of those, and they were like celebrity guest stars, and they would it was kind of like this framed like it's this big Hollywood gala, and they had. I remember David Bowie was one of them, one of the people that talked about it, and. I think Whoopi Goldberg was in it. Maybe Robin Williams.
Well, you're combining the two, because there was the one that I'm talking, which was in 1990. But there was one that you were much younger. You didn't. I'm sure you didn't see it when it actually aired.
No, I think 50th, I saw it on tape.
The 50th Looney Tunes anniversary, which was. Yeah. I think it did start the trend that you're talking about, where it's half historical documentary, half pretending like these celebrities are knowing, talking about Porky and Bugs like they were, childhood
actual
friends.
People, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it did start that trend, but it wasn't done as well. In fact, that's partially why I would want to do a commentary with you on it, is because on both of them, is because I have interviews with Greg Ford where he talks about them, and you and I specifically the other night were talking about how it's just so whenever there's network meddling on such a nth degree, it really does hurt stuff. But when they leave, specifically Greg Ford and Terry Lennon alone, there's some good stuff to be done. And Greg talks about it. About how the first one was for Lorne Michaels, and there were all these great little jokes that got put in there. Meanwhile, the whole sequence with Daffy at Spago's being interviewed by, I forget who it was. They screwed that up. They screwed registration up. They screwed jokes up. So we'll definitely have to get into that at some point with more analytical with a commentary.
Yeah.
Do you remember watching that special on TV when it was on?
I vaguely do. Yes. I think my parents turned it on for me. Like I say, I was pretty young at the time, but I do remember seeing it. And it was a big deal. Like, they advertised the heck out of it, and and it was also right around the time, I guess the previous year, Mel Blanc had passed away.
Yeah.
And that was all over the news. I remember that.
Yep. It was also skyrocketed by or not skyrocketed, but propelled a little bit by Roger Rabbit. It was still, the fumes on Roger Rabbit were still very in high regard, and the studio was high, and also announcing new things like Tiny Toons,
and a couple of new shorts they did, the Daffy Duck, the Ford and Lennon ones that were the horror, Duxorcist and Night of the Living Duck, and then they came out with Daffy Duck's Quackbusters.
But that was 2 years before that.
Okay, but it was all in the same time
but they
frame.
were certainly years. High on it for sure, and
of course this book, Joe Adamson's 50 Years and Only One Gray Hair.
I see your Joe Adamson and I raise you.
You got it too.
Yeah,
yes.
buddy. And that book came out that year, right?
I believe so. I can check the publication date here, but I think that's right. 1991, so it was a year later, but it was definitely in the works at the time. I remember it being in stores and celebrated and everything.
So here's a book that I found, and this is partially why we started as late as we did, because I was digging to find this. Do you remember this?
I do, and I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing it. I don't have that one myself, but
I swear I'm not bragging. This is more just for how funny it is, but it is true. You're a man of God. I'm not, but I swear to God, I bought this in an Acme.
Of course you did.
I bought this in the Acme supermarket in my hometown in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Now, I have to admit, this specific one is not the one that I bought. That one, as you can see, I play with my stuff. I don't save it. It was ravaged by time. I bought this something like 5 years ago. I found it in
you can find it pretty good on eBay. You can find copies of it. It was pretty widely distributed. I remember seeing it in a supermarket too, I think.
But there's definitely advertisements in here, and it was that's where it sat. It just sat among the magazines, and in fact they specifically address that this is not necessarily for kids in the way that it says here. Can you see that?
What's it say? Hey Doc, this ain't no coloring book. which there were a lot of those too.
Yeah.
Back then, I had a lot of coloring books, some of which were on model, and some of which were definitely not.
Now, I will definitely. Maybe I could use this video to announce a new segment on the Looney Tunes Critic, which is eventually going to be Looney Tunes book reports, which is going into all those books that the Adamson book and everything. So I will definitely at some point get into this a lot more. But look at this. Yeah. This is how into traditional animation they were, and gung ho they were. This was Box Office Bunny.
Right. So they showed how a cell worked. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
With the Daryl Van Sitters drawing there now. If you actually
and that was when it was the 50th birthday, the whole celebration thing. That's where the Van Sitters models came from, that you see on all the T-shirts and all the merchandise that you've seen for years. We've all seen the clip art, and unfortunately, I heard him in an interview. I think it was with Stu Showstack a couple years ago, and he said that all of those poses were meant to be just guidelines. They weren't meant to be the actual models that were printed on everything, but that's what Warner Brothers ended up doing, and he doesn't get a dime in residuals whenever those poses are reused.
I bet he gets
and he's getting robbed.
I bet he gets a lot of shit from animation fans and people like me who are mad about things like that. Always annoys me. The cheek muscle being, so like the. Can you see the line there? I'll show in a close up, but
yeah, it's kind of an awkward look.
It unnatural. It doesn't look like there's actual meat. There's just a flare, and the thing is, there's nothing behind it.
Yeah, like you see that painting, on the opening title cards in the classics, where he's got cheeks, and it's his big, head in the middle of the circles.
Here's the original cell that was actually used in the production of Box Office Bunny. That was
right. There you go.
And as you can see, it's completely different color scheme, which I don't buy into the idea that they do things like that to deliberately piss people off. But that somebody had to be like, yeah, you know what? We're definitely gonna give people this cell, but we should do the color differently. Which, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I hated that as a kid, but now that I'm thinking about it, if you're gonna include a free cell.
Yeah.
If you're gonna include a free cell in a $2, I'll show you the price is right there. $2.50.
Right.
In a $2.50 magazine, in a time when animation cells are hot and expensive in commodities.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't make it look exactly like the real thing. Maybe I should shut the fuck up, is what I'm saying.
What I'm talking about, shut up!
I did start to say earlier that, and I'm going to go back to this, that it was a year of specials, Bugs Bunny's 50th, because in addition to the actual special for Bugs Bunny's 50th that we talked about, there was the cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue and the Earth Day special. And I told you about this yesterday. I really should have waited till we shot this to tell you this, but it was such a double gut punch to the gut for me, because cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, and my big beef with it when people get nostalgic for it, is that they forget that it is a bait and switch. And
right. They didn't tell you that it was a big PSA until it came out and it was a big POS.
We had been anticipating it for about four to 6 weeks, and we've been seeing all these commercials, and all of us Toon fans especially who loved Roger Rabbit and were like, we can get our tunes together from different studios now. It's fine. It's happening finally.
Yeah.
Then it was oh no, it's about drugs, and it stinks, and the animation's bad, and the jokes aren't funny, and blah blah. And then the next day is the Earth Day special, and it begins with Bugs, Daffy, and Tweety, and I think Elmer and Porky's there. And not only is it terrible, it's not good, but I will say this. I said this to Greg Ford, and he told me that this was of comfort to him. He said, if you go back and watch it, Bugs is shitty about it.
I was at the first Earth Day. If you ask me, people ain't learned nothing.
It sounds like Bugs is in your position, being forced into something.
Yes, that's exactly right. I wrote it that way just as my means of protest. It wasn't one of my favorite projects, and it was really sort of Kathy Helpy was trying to do what Sam Register later did, sort of take over everything, including the process. So she sort of it was a top-down operation.
Yeah, well, I just remember seeing her name all over all these specials that came out.
She was also did some voice work too. She was. Did you ever see Wuzzles?
A long time ago. It was on the Disney Channel. Yeah.
She was Butterbear on that.
Look what you've done! Who's this?
I'm Butterbear. Oh, please don't hurt me.
She voiced Petunia Pig. In a few things. Do you remember in it was just a few years before this in 1990. It was on Saturday morning they would have these little
PSAs.
Right, and there was one with Porky and Petunia.
Any natural-born citizen over the age of 35 can become president, and that includes women.
I remember that, yeah.
She voices Petunia in that.
Okay, that's interesting. I never knew that. That was back when Mel Blanc was still with us.
Yep, right. Mm-hmm.
So he was doing most of the, the characters, but I didn't know who did Petunia in that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Bugs Bunny birthday video game? Did you ever play that?
Yeah.
On Nintendo?
Yeah.
It was Bugs Bunny's birthday blowout.
I didn't play it that year, but I did play it. Yes. When here's what I remember from the birthday blowout thing. When I did play it is that it wasn't like all the Looney Tunes were jealous of Bugs in the game.
Right. And so they decided to play a prank on him.
Is that what it was? Because
what I remember they're jealous of his fame because he's turning 50 and they're celebrating him and they're all jealous, and so they start. Basically they try to kill him. It's like every level the boss is a different Looney Tunes character trying to kill him, and it's. I mean, plot-wise, what are you going to do on an NES game? But it was fun. I mean, it was playable. It was a hell of a lot better than Crazy Castle, anyway.
So if let me just make a really really lame segue here. The Angry Video Game Nerd, James Rolfe, did a good review, a very funny review.
Oh yeah, with the Bugs Bunny costume.
Yeah, and I use the music that they made for it in the commentaries. And I talked to him a lot in I think it was April, May, or June, around that time. He did a review, a video rental review was what it's called, of Predator, I think, The Predator, when it came out again, the new one. And he did it in this movie theater, the Anthony Wayne Theater, which I have mentioned on earlier things
in
before.
fact, I think you mentioned it on one of the commentaries we did earlier.
Oh, really? I love that place.
Could you leave us, some privacy, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
www.savetheanthonywayne.com.
That thing was where I saw a number of cartoons for the first time, because in 1990, because of the birthday, Warner's reissued a number of the shorts into the theaters, and they were running them before the movie ended.
I definitely remember that. In fact, I remember vividly being a kid in a movie theater. I can't remember what movie it was with, but I saw a Sylvester cartoon on the big screen. And I later figured out, based on my memory of it, my memory was Sylvester climbing up a bridge and he's jumping into a smokestack of a tugboat. And I realized later that it was called Tugboat Granny.
Tugboat Granny, yeah.
But to see that on a big screen, I had never seen that before, and just the sound was so awesome. You get this big, movie theater sound, and when that tugboat whistle goes off and blows that smokestack, it's like, and Sylvester falling in, and then that Mel Blanc, I remember that.
I got to see Lumberjerks for the first time at the Anthony Wayne in 1990, the year of our Lord Bugs Bunny. I got to see Alibaba Bunny. It wasn't for the first time, but I got to see
cool.
Alibaba Bunny on the big screen at the Anthony Wayne in 1990. And dude, you don't understand like how big a deal it was. And I'm trying to impress upon, the younger generation how rare it is that a year where it's big, everything's a big deal for Looney Tunes, it's super fucking rare. And the last time it probably happened was in 1990 with the 50th.
Yeah, like that and
oh my God,
and Space Jam. Space Jam was the other time that they really promoted the hell out of Looney Tunes.
It's kind of weird because we're celebrating the new cartoons, and it's been 50 years since they made those cartoons the right way.
Uh-huh.
And we're talking about the 50th. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's not.
And
weird.
I don't know why, but I think that there would totally be a market for bringing those cartoons back, just like they did in 1990. The classic ones, just run them in movie theaters. There's so many of them, and they're all restored and digital now. Why don't they just put them in theaters again? I don't understand why they don't. Well, I know because they want to sell more trucks and more Coca-Cola and run 30 minutes of trailers instead. But I wish they would bring them back.
I mean, I'm always amazed when I meet people who either A, don't know, or B, are in communications with people who don't realize that these cartoons were not made just a few years ago. They were made decades ago in a completely different time. And that's when I wonder, that's when moralistically I wonder about the restorations being too clean and crisp and too high fructose corn syrup bright. And, because they always said in those golden collections that, I'm getting ready to go off on a rant, so I shouldn't, but they say they don't alter the colors and stuff, but they do. They amp them up so that they can put them on Cartoon Network right next to, the newer stuff, and it doesn't look black and white, old and faded and whatever. I get all that.
Yeah.
But part of that problem is that
we are spoiled in that way, because even back in 1990, there used to be on TV a real split between the pre-1948, post-1948 cartoons and what they showed on Turner channels, which was TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network. Those were the old unrestored AAP copies that dated back to the 50s, and they looked horrible. Like, you would watch the Looney Tunes on Saturday mornings, and that was all the post-1948. That was all the the Bugs Bunny, the Tweety, the familiar characters. And then you go back and you watch them on TNT, and they're showing like some old Merry Melody from the early 40s, and it looks brown.
Yeah.
Like Bugs Bunny didn't look gray, he looked brown, and everything was faded, and they looked awful.
Apparently, though, I did a bit of digging and asked around, and apparently, we're probably not going to see anything like, cups with the proclamation that this is the 80th. We're not going to be getting, stuff like this. Apparently, Warner Brothers put way more money, and this is what happened with Space Jam 2, incidentally. They put way more money into the marketing of everything than what they actually got back, and that's why there wasn't ever like a Porky's 50 or another. There were zero anniversaries after that.
Right, and for a long time, I think recently it's been lifted, but for a while there was a ban by Warner Brothers on mentioning the dates that these cartoons were made. And I guess recently I've heard that they've kind of lifted that a little bit. And that's good. Yeah. Because in my view, anyway, the older these characters are, that means that they've been around for that long. They must be doing something right. Yeah. There's a reason that these cartoons have endured for so long. There's a reason that people still watch Bugs Bunny. Because they're classics, like you were saying, made decades ago, and people are still enjoying them. And that's everyone from people who buy the expensive sets, like we did, the Golden Collections, the Platinum sets, to Walmart soccer moms who buy the double-dipped, $5 bin discs that are ripped off from those other collections. But people are still buying and still watching Bugs Bunny cartoons.
The industry term is shunted over.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a dig at Jerry. No offense, Jerry.
Okay. But and Jerry talks about this too, like the soccer mom set, the family division. That
I don't
put out
think Jerry
those
would
things.
use the term soccer mom set, but
yeah. But that's what they are. They're the family division that put them in Walmarts and stuff.
Keep talking. I will be right back.
And because because they do that, at least it gets the characters out there. It's not what they say. It's not for us. It's not for the collectors. It's for a mom who remembers Bugs Bunny growing up and sees his face on the front of a disc and says, "Oh, I'm going to buy this for my kids." They may not exactly want to buy an entire golden collection. They might just want to introduce their kids to Bugs Bunny. And so that's fine. Like, there's no, exactly, those kinds of things. Yeah. Yep.
Are these kind of things the kind of things that you're talking about?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're talking about these kind of things, or if you're talking about these kind of things. You're definitely talking about Tiny Toons. On some level. On some level, aren't we all talking about Tiny Toons? Are you talking maybe about reprints of stuff where it's the same thing more than once? Have I made my point, or should I get the other box?
Yeah.
One last little piece of trivia I do want to get on camera for the record. I'll send a link to this in my blog where I mentioned this, but the logo, the Bugs Bunny's 50th logo, there is animation of that too, which I will show here. That logo, I don't know if you realize this, but me and Pez figured out it's from one of the Gossamer cartoons. I think it's Water Every Hare.
Oh the pose.
Yeah,
it was a Chuck Jones pose. Right. Yeah, yeah.
My stars. So
that's right. He's like leaning over Gossamer's head when he's doing his hair, with the firecrackers.
It did.
Yeah,
I realized that when I was making the Quackbusters review, and I was watching that part where it's Daffy's doing it as a commercial, and they have that clip in there, and I saw him do it, and just. I think I had the magazine out or something, or the logo was like within my eye line while I was watching it, and I was like, holy shit.
Like, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, right? And it was like, I knew I'd seen that before, and if you look closely, you can see the hand holding the carrot is different than the hand that he's leaning on, because that's Chuck's hand, and this hand holding the carrot is somebody else.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, too, is right around that 50th birthday and throughout the 90s, Bugs Bunny in a tuxedo was a common image, and it was even on the Warner Brothers opening logos. In a lot of movies, you'll see older movies made in the 90s.
You know why
Bugs
that was,
Bunny
right?
comes out from behind the shield chewing a carrot wearing a tuxedo.
You know why?
Why?
Because of Mickey doing it at Walt Disney World all throughout the 80s.
Okay. Yeah, because then you started seeing him wearing a tuxedo in costume at Six Flags. And places
that's where
like
they
that.
Introduced it, was at Six Flags. He started doing it at Six Flags, and they started doing it in all the marketing and stuff. Anyway, man, we got to wrap this up. But thank you for sitting in with us, dude, and going down this memory lane with us. Because, like I say, it was a crazy time to be a Looney Tunes fan. And for all the younger generation now, get ready, gang. It's going to be awesome.
Sure thing, Doc.
That's all, folks.